You're listening to WorkWire, sponsored by Career Club and SHRM. Career Club has a range of services aimed at job seekers with an empathetic approach. Whether you are a job seeker yourself, know someone who is in job search, or an HR professional looking to bring a more empathetic approach to transitioning employees, check out career.club. If you are an HR professional seeking to enhance your skills, subscribe to SHRM and explore their extensive resources. Visit shrm.org. That's shrm.org.
Welcome, everybody, to another very special episode of The WorkWire. I am Bob Goodwin, the president of Career Club, joined by my usual running mate and co-host, Johnny C. Taylor Jr., the president and CEO of SHRM. Today, we are doing something new. We have a guest on The WorkWire. We are very pleased to welcome Shiv Shivakumar. Shiv, welcome.
Thank you for having me here, both Bob and Johnny. It's wonderful to be here.
I want to just very quickly, because like I said, we've never done this before, so we've picked a really good guest to have for our very first one, Johnny. So let me just kind of get folks who may not be familiar with your background grounded, Shiv. So Shiv's a luminary in the realms of business and leadership. His illustrious career spans over several decades, during which he's held pivotal roles in leading multinational companies, including as a group executive president of corporate strategy at Ajitya Birla Group, chairperson and CEO at PepsiCo India, and he's currently serving as the operating partner at Advent International, a leading global private equity firm. Shiv has a reputation as a transformational leader and is known for his insightful approach to navigating complex business landscapes and fostering innovation. His contributions extend beyond corporate leadership as he's a sought-after speaker, mentor, and author, sharing his wisdom on leadership, change management, and the future of work. Shiv, wow, welcome.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you for those kind words.
So we could probably spend a season's worth of episodes unpacking all of that, but
well, let's do it. Let's do it, Bob.
We can do that too. But today, so for episode one then of the Shiv series, we're going to do it on leadership. And, you know, Johnny, you speak very often on the topic of leadership. Your community are leaders within companies, in policy, in academia. Shiv, I want to just sort of tee this up with a fairly broad question of just how leadership has changed from back in the day where it might have been more military style leadership to how it's evolved into, you know, the digital world that we find ourselves in now.
Yeah, great question, Bob. So when I look at the digital world that we live in today, and I ask myself, how is the digital world different from the physical world, from which a lot of the leadership theories, like the great man traits theory or things like that came through? Fundamentally, the digital world, the speed in a digital world is of a different order, number one. Number two, the emphasis on data, because you collect so much data in a digital world, is extremely different. Third, business models change on a daily basis in a digital world. We had fixed business models in a physical world, but digital models are very flexible, very innovative in a digital world. The next thing about a digital world is that you have to work with the ecosystem. The ecosystem becomes extremely important in a digital world. In a physical world, you had one or two partners, but in a digital world, you could have maybe 10, 15 partners, to work with. And hence you have dependent growth strategies, not independent growth strategies. And finally, I would say in a digital world, capabilities keep moving forward all the time, closer to the consumer and not to the factory or the production side. Digital takes you much closer to the consumer than ever before. And my final point on how digital world is different today, Bob and Johnny, is that in the past, in the physical world, we measure trust on a yearly basis. In a digital world, trust is a daily exercise. You win trust or lose trust almost on a daily basis. So those are the differences which I see fundamentally in a digital world. And that's what leaders need to grapple with today compared to the past.
And so how have you seen, I'm sorry, John, just very quickly, how have you seen the kind of most important leadership qualities? Have they changed, or are they the same, just packaged differently or utilized differently?
Yeah, Johnny, you wanted to say something before I
No,
jump in?
let me tell you, this is why I'm so simpatico with Bob. That was exactly my question. Fundamentally, the digital world may have changed. We may have gone from a non-digital to digital, but what about, are there enduring leadership qualities? Do you still essentially lead the same way or no?
Yeah, great question again. So, the first point I'd like to make on the change in leadership is in the past, you were the champion of your company and you're fine doing that role. Today, when you're part of an ecosystem, you have to manage change and champion the ecosystem. And that is what your ecosystem partners would expect of you, that you contribute to that ecosystem, number one. Number two, in a digital world, everything which happens in an organization happens horizontally. It doesn't happen vertically. So if you want collaboration, if you want agility, you want speed, you have to drive horizontal collaboration, have SLAs, etc., all signed off properly. Third, in a digital world, your employees are getting information from everybody. Horizontal information sharing is a lot more in a digital world. In the physical world, the boss spoke and everybody took cue from the boss. In a horizontal digital world, everybody is speaking to everybody else. So you need to communicate very, very effectively. Next thing in a digital world, in terms of what's changed, is the number of layers in an organization is shrinking. So earlier you had maybe 7 to 10 layers. Now maybe you have 4 to 6 layers. So managing that in terms of communication, in terms of energizing, etc., is very different. And finally, a digital world is also a social world, Bob. In a social world, your reputation, your words matter. For example, one of the serial CEOs yesterday, CEREAL, serial CEOs yesterday said, have cereal at night because it's the cheapest food.
Yes,
And then
Yes.
he got plastered all over media. So in
I
a
saw that.
digital world, you have to be extremely clear about the words you use. So that's a great emphasis on choosing the right words because it can just blow up on your face. So
Johnny, what do
that's
you
how
say? The
leadership
internet's
is.
forever, right?
Oh, forever and unforgiving. I mean,
Yes.
that's that. Yeah, that right at once, right? And it's funny. I'd love to follow on that. It's really interesting. I have so many things I want to talk to you about, but one, speak to the issue of trust. You alluded to it earlier. Trust specifically with your customers, but with your employees, particularly in this horizontal world. And I love the way you describe it. You're right. We often say top down, but that's really vertical. But this is because sometimes it went up as well. But this horizontal landscape that you've described is really, really insightful. But how do you develop trust, and how important is trust? We always spoke of trust with our customers. What about trust with our employees?
Yeah. So when employees look at trust, Johnny, the way they think about trust is you, Johnny, the CEO, will not hurt me when I am vulnerable.
Right.
That is trust to them.
That's trust.
Okay, so in their most vulnerable moments, they should feel that you have their back and you support them. That's very important. And the only way a CEO can do that is to listen to what the troops are saying, what people are feeding back to him in an honest way, not to cut off negative feedback. Number one. Number two, to be authentic and communicate with them very clearly where you stand and why you stand. For example, if you're having layoffs, explain why the layoffs are necessary to save the company, not to save your job. What is happening? What is forcing us to lay off? And where is the light at the end of the tunnel? Is this an ongoing exercise for 5 years or is this a one off? I think people expect more honesty from their CEOs. And the more honest you are, the more trust you get. That's what I found. And finally, where we find trust to be actually a little nebulous or question mark is first time managers.
Yes.
First time managers are always a challenge because they don't seem to imbibe the full qualities of the organization and they want to do things their way, and hence they're not pulling the diversity of the team. And so behavior of first time managers is at odds with developing trust with your people.
Johnny, would you build on that point, please? Because I know that, and I'm going to brag on you for a second. You just got through testifying with the Armed Services Committee, and one of the things that you talked about was frontline managers. And
Yes.
I'd love if you could build on Shiv's point, please.
Yeah. So, Shiv, going back to the vertical world of the past, when we would take the best accountant, technically speaking, and make that person, crown them the manager of accountants. That's what we do. And whether they had people management skills, whether they even liked people, wanted to be bothered with people, didn't matter. If you were the most tenured and you happened to be the most competent at the technical job, you were oftentimes made the leader. And what we have, I'd love your reaction to, but what we're hearing is people say the people manager might be someone who is 25 years old and has only been in the workplace 2 or 3 years, but it's because he or she can build trust, followership, which is another term that Bob, I want you to elaborate on, but that's the person, not the seasoned 20-year technician, because that person might be great at the job, but not at gaining trust and building trust with people. And I think our fundamental reality as HR folks have come to realize we have allowed, and I'm going to use that term, and we've allowed our hiring managers and senior types to promote people into jobs that they're either not qualified to do. In other words, you can't motivate and build trust with people, or we have not prepared them to do, meaning we've not invested in people management capability building with those people before we throw them into the job.
Yeah, I would say in reaction to that, Johnny, is that look at moments of trust in an organization.
Okay.
Moments of trust become very important, or people sense it when there is discussion around transformation and layoffs. And I've covered that. The other moments of trust, there are two other moments in an organization which are very important. One is appraisal time. Okay. And the third one is promotion time. When people see that appraisals and promotions are fair, then there's more trust in the system. When they see that promotions and appraisals are unfair, then they don't trust the system. And many times I've encountered this when people, we say, look, I don't think you will cut it, maybe you need to look out, etc. They'll say, but why didn't my manager tell me this in the last 3 years?
That's right.
Why was he sugarcoating this? Okay, where is it written in my last appraisal that I had to improve in these areas or had to deliver better? So honesty in appraisals and honesty in feedback and honesty in promotions is absolutely crucial, in building trust.
So one of the things that you've written about, I think maybe we can segue into this. You use the acronym VUCA, but you don't use it in the traditional sense that a lot of listeners would know, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. You've got a different definition of VUCA that I think has a lot of these qualities that great leaders and emerging leaders would benefit from. Could you share that with folks?
Yeah. My issue with VUCA is it just describes something.
Right.
Okay. It just describes it. It doesn't tell you what to do. So what has VUCA become? If you look at books, if you look at presentations, everybody says we live in a VUCA world. Now, in my experience, it's a shorthand for saying I'm in trouble and I'm sure you understand. But that doesn't solve the problem. That's what everybody is doing. You know what? We live in a VUCA world.
Right.
So it's like saying, look, tomorrow is going to be sunny. But the weather forecaster hasn't told you, should you take an umbrella? Should you take the sunscreen? Should you do this? Should you wear walking shoes? What is he asking you to do if it is sunny out there?
Right.
So I thought long and hard about it. And for me, V stands for versatility. If you want to face the world which is volatile, you need to be versatile. Otherwise, you cannot face the world. U is for uncomfortable. You have to get uncomfortable as a leader to say, I don't know everything. There is no definitiveness. There is no black and white. There are lots of shades of gray, and I'm happy to deal with it. That's the second part of uncomfortable. C is for collaboration, because nothing can be achieved if the whole organization doesn't pull in one particular direction, which is collaboration. And A is for agility, because in a VUCA world, you have to be very quick off the blocks. If you're slow, you'll get murdered. In fact, I say this in many a session, Bob and Johnny. If you look at the last 25 years, no big company has beaten a small company. However, a fast company has beaten a slow company. So agility becomes very, very crucial if you really want to succeed. So that's my definition.
Johnny, any particular one of those resonate with you?
All of it. And I'm one of those folks who every time I get in front of a group, I talk about VUCA because you're right. It describes the state of affairs. And to be fair, when you reflect on it, it's true. Like it is we live in this world that is very different than perhaps times past. And our employees sometimes need to be made aware of it. But Shiv nailed it. Now you've got to tell me, okay, what do I do in response to it? So I got it. I don't disagree that VUCA accurately describes our current state, but how do I navigate that? What can I do individually and as a leader to help my employees navigate it? So I absolutely love that. I'll be stealing that, by the way, because I think that's, and I'll give credit, Shiv. I absolutely
No. Johnny, it's yours.
You should. And it's so fun. If you see me looking down, it's because I was actually writing that down at the time saying, gosh, this is really, really good. So I love it. I can't add anything to it because it's spot on. What about you, Bob?
Well, what I would just sort of, one that really struck me was this uncomfortable.
Yes.
Kind of contrasting, the traditional definition of VUCA and yours, which is, there's kind of a don't blame me. Like, what do you want from me? Look how crazy it is out there. It's a VUCA world. So what do you want from me? It's not my fault we missed our targets. And we're going to get into accountability in a second where we can kind of pick up on this theme. But hey, it's changing consumer preferences. It's the economy. It's not my fault. It's a VUCA world. The uncomfortable, I think, ties back into what you were talking about. Johnny, you brought up the issue of trust, authenticity. Right. It's like, I don't know, or even admitting a mistake. Like, I got this one wrong. We thought this was the right way to go. It wasn't. We're going to acknowledge that. I think for a workforce to hear a leader say, I didn't get it right. It's not the economy's fault. It's not your fault. It's, I'm going to own, we didn't get this piece of it right. And then, it's one of those situations like, when it's an issue, you need a mirror. When you're giving credit, it's a window, right? So if the problem, I'm going to own the problem, but I'm going to share the credit with people. And so the uncomfortable thing, I think that's really from traditional leadership models. I have to be strong. I have to be the wizard. I have to, be infallible to lead this group. I think the current generation, John, and you talk a lot about this, the current emerging generation, they want authenticity. They kind of see through the BS of, I don't have any challenges, and they really gravitate. Vulnerability is a magnet for young people.
It is, but Shiv, I'd love you to react to it. It's funny. They are, that group, this in particular Generation Z, send mixed messages. And maybe we all do to some extent. So I want a leader who gives me confidence, especially in periods of those trust moments or those moments of trust that Shiv, like you're getting ready to lay off. Yes, I want you to admit that maybe it was partly your mistake, but I still have to pay my rent next month. So, and if I'm one of the remaining employees, is this going to happen to me next year? So, we're constantly as leaders, and I hear this a lot from leaders, like on one hand, the employee who sits down at the performance review, another trust moment or moment of trust, I want you to be honest with me. But then if you're too honest, I don't like that either, because I don't feel psychologically safe. I don't feel like, so to be fair to people, managers out here and human resource professionals, people say they want your authentic self until your authentic self shows up. Like these are, it's not as easy as, and that's why this people management stuff and leadership is so difficult, because oftentimes someone says A when they really mean B.
Yeah.
Shiv?
Yeah. My own experience in that regard, Johnny and Bob, is especially with the millennials. Number one, they want you to be relevant for tomorrow.
Yes.
If I stand in front of them and I give them examples of what I did 5 years ago, they say, come on, this is a hogwash.
Right.
Tell me your point of view about what's going to happen in the next 3-4 years.
Yes.
Whether it comes true or not is not important.
Doesn't
but
matter.
do you have a point of view about the future? Because remember, they have a long career ahead of themselves, number one. Number two, they expect you to be fair. That's the other thing in all situations. Okay. That's the second one. Third one is they keep asking themselves, if I'm working under Shiv who has 20 years experience, can I condense those 20 years experience of Shiv and learn under him within 6 months?
Right.
I don't want to be here on the 7th month, but can I juice out everything that he knows and this thing? And finally, all employees, especially millennials, work for CV value. Is their CV value improving as a result of working for you, as a result of working for the company? If they believe the CV value is increasing, they will flaunt it. I work for Johnny Taylor on 10 projects.
That's right.
I work for Bob on 20 projects. I advise, that's what they do. And my advice to leaders always is, with millennials, shoot for respect and not popularity. If you want to be popular, then go sell ice cream.
Right.
But with millennials, you must get their respect first.
That's right. Well, Shiv, you said something that I'd love to probe on. So that last comment, what about mutuality? So the employees who says, I'm only working for CV value, and I'm not going to be here 7 months from now, so I'm going to extract everything I can. Why? And I pose this to you. Why can't management say the same thing? Why can't management say, listen, right now, I need you for a year for this project. After that, good luck, because just as you will move on from me, then why don't we have some mutuality here? You want me for CV value. I want you to see you went to ILR or whatever, all these famous schools in India or Harvard in the US. Okay, perfect. And when this is no longer, when there's almost like sports, like the funny thing I love about sports is they bring in a bumper crop of 18 to 24-year-olds and you join the team. But when you turn 35, there are other younger legs, and you don't expect me to remain loyal to you because I'm not going to be like, it's just, if it's going to become that transactional, that those last two things that you described, CV value and the fact that I'm going to extract as much as I can out of you as long as I'm here with no expectation that I'm stay longer. What happens when leaders do the same thing? Is that not a fair deal?
Yes, great question, Johnny. The first thing is, the relationship between an employer and an employee, or a manager who's representing the employer and an employee, should not be asymmetrical. If it is asymmetrical, you can never get that done.
That's right.
Okay, that's absolutely critical. Next is, we already do it. Like, for example, we have gig workers. Okay, we have outsourced many of our core activities, and we've established global capability centers. We are on the path already to do it.
That's right.
And my simple representation of that would be, if Johnny is hiring me and he tells me, Shiv, this job is for 1 year, subject to your performance, subject to company's financial health, we could continue. You make up your mind whether you want to join us or not. If it is that clear, then it is absolutely fine to do. The issue happens when it becomes unclear and suddenly in the middle of the tenure, you're told, hey, you know what? We don't have a role for you. Then the employee feels, I had a trust and a bond with this company. Now that's broken. And then they go to Glassdoor and start doing this.
Right.
In Unilever in the year 2001, we used to have an annual plan. And our chairman globally just changed one word to get much more focus in. And he said, you know what? This is no longer an annual plan. It's an annual contract. He said, you will not have AP 2024. It will be called AC 2024.
Okay.
So a simple word change suddenly told people, hey, you know what? I'm not being fired, but I'm being clearly told that this is a contract that I need to deliver.
Yep.
So that equation must be clear right in the beginning is my submission.
And I agree. And so we violently agree. And that then gives you the mutuality, right?
Absolutely.
Now, Bob, we would say in the US, we kind of have that because it's called employment at will.
Like I was waiting for that.
It's not a year. It's not an annual contract. It is, you have a job today and you may not have it tomorrow. That's created its own set of issues. Maybe, employment at will literally is not good. Maybe it should be a year, 6 months, pick the period of time. But I get the point about the asymmetry and my point about mutuality. Like whatever the terms of this relationship are, let's make sure that we have it. some would argue, and I know there are many out there listening right now who'd say, yeah, but the bargaining power is not the same. The company can find someone tomorrow to replace me. I can't find a job tomorrow. And that's a much broader conversation, a longer conversation. But I do think what you're describing is, and I hear this, and we hear this in SHRM research constantly, is managers are like, you want me to trust you, but I can't trust you. So it's not mutual. You can be out looking for a job, but I can't be looking out for your replacement.
Yeah. And in treating millennials, Johnny, I would say treat them like volunteers, not employees.
That's right.
They have given a chunk of time to you.
Yep.
If you make the most of their talent in that time, they'll give you another chunk of time. Okay. Treat them as volunteers, please. Do not treat them as employees.
That's interesting.
They can leave any point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to noodle on that one a little bit. And what also has been running in my mind listening to you guys is when companies are out there saying we're a family.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's like, no, we're not. Like I have a family, and it's not the people who pay me. But that's actually, I love this annual contract kind of thing, because that really is the relationship. And to say that it's different. And John, I'm going to go back to your point about people speaking out of both sides of their mouth.
Yes.
Right. Because there's so much, like I need the employer to do this for me and provide this for me and provide this for me. And yet, from the accountability side, and Shiv, I know this is something that you talk about. Maybe we can kind of get into it here. Johnny, we've done episodes on lazy girl jobs, quiet quitting, those kinds of things. So it's like, I want all this stuff, but I'm only willing to give you much less. And so there's another, in some cases, evidence of asymmetry. So Shiv, can you talk about accountability and how it kind of, in mutual accountability?
Yeah. So accountability for people, when you talk to employees, what does accountability mean for them? It means you're holding them accountable for the results they were supposed to deliver or the goals they were supposed to hit. But all of accountability and all of business, as all of us know, is in a particular context.
Yep.
Things can go horribly wrong. Things can go horribly right. So, like, for example, a lifting tide lifts all boats.
Right.
So does everybody get rewarded? Equally, when the water goes back, recedes, then all the boats, ground. So is that, recognized at all? So what people want you to be as a judge of performance and accountability to say, have you taken the context into account? Have you provided me with all the resources, etc.? Right. And the simplest way I figure out people who are accountable vis-a-vis people who are not accountable in their minds first, before I hold them accountable, is people who do not like accountability externalize a lot.
Yep.
You know what? I could have done this, but Johnny didn't do his bit.
That's right.
I could have done this, but Bob's department didn't support me. So you just listen to their narrative at appraisal time, you'll find that more than 50% of the conversation is about blaming others.
That's right.
Now that kind of a person will not be accountable in any company. Trust me, in any company. On the other hand, people will say, hey, you know what? I could have done this better, Shiv, if only I had reached out and asked Bob for help. If only I had tapped into Johnny's, contact book, I could have done more. Now, suddenly people are learning and saying, I could have used the resources of the company far better to be accountable, even though I was short. So that's what I find amongst people who are accountable and not accountable. Externalization vis-a-vis internalizing the deficit and saying, this is what I could have done about it.
I love that. Bob is saying, I know that's Johnny speak. Shiv, exceptionally well said. In fact, this year at SHRM, even within my context as CEO of SHRM, I've told employees our guiding principles, the one that resonates most with me this year is excellence and accountability. Yeah. And to your point, being very transparent with people that this is the standard. This is the way we operate. But it's not just because vertically Johnny, the leader, is on some ego trip. We owe it to our customers.
Absolutely.
Our members. We can't deliver. And you think about it, I don't want to put a company on the spot right now, but Boeing, if you don't
Absolutely.
right? It's a classic example. Somewhere in their system, and I don't know who, but somewhere excellence and accountability is not being upheld, which ultimately, forget the stock price, it's putting people's lives at risk. That you cannot allow that to be the culture in an organization. So yeah, it may be rough on a particular employee who is not accountable, but it's for the good of society. People have to have confidence that when they get on a plane, that they're going to land safely on the plane, save for stuff that Mother Nature and God like does, right? You can't have it because there was a sloppy employee.
And also, I would add, Johnny, one thing is that, accountability must lead to professional integrity, enhancing professional integrity. If I'm accountable, I'm enhancing the integrity of my function, be it R&D in the case of Boeing, or be accounting in the case of Enron. It has to improve the professional integrity of the individual and that function within the company and the industry.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, hot button word for me just to talk about integrity for half of a second. The thing that's interesting about integrity is you only know it when it's called into question. Yeah. So if I'm at Enron and I'm the accounting department and Jeff, whatever his name was, who's the CFO, it's like, wait a minute, thank you. I can say that I've got, integrity is very important to me. Great. Give me an example when it was called into question, right? Or at Boeing, somebody in their engineering group or manufacturing group is like, this isn't right. There's something not happening here, and having the courage to stand up and be accounted for and willing to accept the consequences of, being unpopular or whatever, might happen, but it could come at the cost of your job. And so, I mean, those are, not small stakes, but that's integrity, is when it's called into question. Otherwise, it's just a word and it's easy to claim and very hard to prove.
That's right.
I'll give you my 2 cents on that, Bob, which is, when we talk integrity, most organizations understand it as financial integrity. That's common. That's par for the course. Don't even discuss it.
Right.
My measure of integrity in an organization is the intellectual honesty that managers display. Yep. There have been companies where I could stand and argue with the chairman and say, this is wrong, we are doing the wrong thing, and disagree with him, and still nothing would happen to me. And there were companies when you could not disagree with your boss. So when an organization lacks intellectual honesty, its managers lack intellectual honesty, what you get is sycophancy. Right. When you get sycophancy, you actually get bad integrity.
That's right. Institutional wide. That's right. That's when the collective of that, because it becomes your culture. Absolutely. Right? And you multiply that 10,000 times across 100,000 person enterprise, and you've got a problem. You have a real problem.
Yeah. Well,
so
that's what you say, Johnny. Go ahead.
The examples of Toyota, Volkswagen, Enron, Boeing, they're all examples of what you just described, Bob.
Yeah. Johnny, and it's just a great point. You often say the culture of a company is how stuff really gets done.
That's right.
And if intellectual dishonesty is how things really get done, that is your culture, irrespective of what you've got placards all over the office on. Just back on accountability, Shiv, and we can use this maybe to move into a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is career development and personal brand. And, oftentimes every time we're working with a client and, they're looking for their next role, whether they're working somewhere right now or in between jobs, and they want to talk about their CV. Having your job description on there is interesting, but what I want to see is, what did you do? The language of business is numbers. And the way that I say it is, adjectives are not accomplishments. So, I'm a strategic problem solver, I'm a creative thinker, blah, blah, blah. I'd say, I don't know what that means. Or you've got your job description on there. I mean, here's the dirty secret. People get fired for not doing their job description. So that doesn't tell me if you're any good at it. But when there's, hey, I actually understand how I contribute, whether I help the company make money, save money, mitigate risk, what some of those value levers are. I would love for you to talk for a minute, Shiv, on how you coach people around building their personal brand and thinking about career development.
Yeah. So the first thing about this topic is that The role of a leader is to develop other leaders.
Yes.
First, to develop them as a person, and then second, to develop them as leaders. One of the things which we can contribute as leaders to people who work with us is our ability to prioritize their work and their impact and output. Everybody wants to impress you. Everybody wants to do 20 things. Now, nobody is a combination of Superman plus Batman plus, Spider-Man.
You haven't spent enough time with Johnny, but okay.
Hey, and let me say, and Wonder Woman. We got to make sure we add her. That's right.
Absolutely right. And
That's
Wonder Woman. So what we need to tell them is, look, I know you think you can do 20 things. Can you just focus on 5 things which have the highest impact? A lot of the time when you need to develop people, you need to focus them on their areas of strength. And quite often people don't understand that. They take it for granted that the multiplier they get on when they focus on their strengths is significantly higher.
Right.
Next, I would say that when people are very good, give them tailwind.
Yes.
Just encourage them more to do better. Okay. Don't give talented people headwind. They will hate it.
Yep.
Okay. So you need to give them a lot more tailwind. And when you have very talented people working for you, one of the things that you as a leader must do is to protect them. You must protect them for the good of the company. Yes. When they're doing the right thing. When you don't protect talented people, then the average drops dramatically.
Absolutely. I tell you too, that first point that you made really resonates with me. Strengths. I have found more managers and frankly individuals who spend a disproportionate amount of time trying to take the things they're only going to be decent at. So they spend their time working on the areas that are their weaknesses, their developmental areas. And while some of that has to occur, you're going to get the best return by maximizing your strengths. And most people don't know what their strengths are. So they spend most of their time working on the things that they'll never be great at. Like I said this to someone, I could spend 20 hours a day in the front of a basketball court and I could have LeBron James as my coach, and it's never going to work. Like that's not my strength. And I think in corporate America, I find more people trying to be great at something that's just not natural. It's not in their wheelhouse. And they would be so much better identifying what they can do really well. To your point, having a manager or a leader focused on their tailwinds, not because headwinds is all about telling me what I'm doing wrong and what I'll never be great at. It doesn't work for the person and it doesn't work for us as organizational leaders.
Yeah. On development, the other interesting but sad fact is that in every appraisal, we say these are development areas for Shiv or for Bob or Johnny. Right. And after that, what happens is most employees have outsourced the problem to their HR manager or to the leader. They expect you to do something.
That's right.
So one of the things I did over the last 4-5 years was to say, these are your development needs. Here's your budget. Okay, here's a budget of $1,000. You're free to choose 2 courses of your choice, but it's your responsibility now to develop yourself. It's not the responsibility of HR. It's not the responsibility of the boss, because they must carry the development on their back.
That's right.
You cannot carry that monkey on your back as a leader.
No, one little nuance I'd say, HR needs to be a resource to that person who doesn't know how to consume.
We can enable them.
That's right. Enable them. Yeah, that's the big deal. We've seen, and I've actually tested with giving people annually a budget to spend on their leadership development tool. The problem is some people don't know how to. In fact, I got to tell you this quick story. I was working with someone. I said, you need a degree. So she went to a school that had a very poor program, horrible results, horrible curriculum, expensive, etc. And she got a degree. And at the end, she came back and said, I'm ready for my promotion. I was like, not so much. The worst of all scenarios is she invested her time and her money and our money, right, as an organization. And then at the end, she did. So talking about a trust issue. So that's why I would say to my HR practitioners out here listening, we do have a responsibility to help enable this decision. I love where Shiv has said, here's your $1,000 and your career is ultimately your responsibility, largely because it's portable. you can take it with you. You know, once you master this, you may do it for another company. So this is for your benefit, and therefore you should take the lead on it, but with some help from learning management and professional development types in HR.
Correct.
Okay, but so let's start to bring this one in for a landing here a little bit, since we're talking about Boeing and a safe landing. We started off talking about this digital world that we live in, and obviously AI is the topic of the day in technology. Johnny, maybe you could actually kind of kick us off here a little bit, because SHRM's taken a very strong position on AI plus HI equals ROI. If you want to explain that a little bit, and then maybe that can kind of set Shiv up.
Yeah, so November 29th of 2022 was when the world essentially started talking about AI, because that was the day that they unveiled ChatGPT. And there was a huge excitement. I remember that day. Oh my gosh, this can happen. But shortly thereafter, the articles started going dark. AI is going to take your job. 300 million jobs will go away, be meaningfully reconstituted. Ultimately machines and robots. And there was a movie called Megan. In other words, the narrative went very dark very quickly, and people freaked out. We realized the promise of AI, but didn't fully appreciate the threat to human beings' need to protect their livelihoods. There are only two things existentially that threaten human beings. It is a threat to their lives and to their livelihoods. And AI became the threat to their livelihoods in much the same way as COVID was a threat to their lives. So we've seen huge pushback and resistance from people to AI, notwithstanding all of the amazing benefits. And so we at SHRM sort of said, we've got to reposition the messaging and change the narrative, that it's not AI alone that's going to be what companies look at from an ROI perspective. It's AI plus HI, because there's some things that uniquely human beings will do that a machine will not do in the foreseeable future, right? If ever. So that thus came the narrative of it's AI plus HI, human intelligence, that will deliver the ROI of the future. Just that shift in language, that very basic calculation, has helped kind of allay some of the concerns and stop what we were seeing on the legislative front. You talked about being the Senate. Everyone now wants to legislate it away. And you may say, why? Well, it's because voters are fearful of losing their jobs. They call their politician and say, oh, I know what it can do, but you need to slow it down, because that threatens my ability to earn a livelihood. So that's the regulation. The regulators will shut it down, even if it's good, because their voters, as wonderful as the machine learning is and algorithms and all of that, they don't vote. So politicians have to listen to voters.
Mm-hmm. Shiv, you want to run with that?
Yes, no, I fully agree with that. And I think AI plus HI equals ROI is a fantastic concept. You should trademark it and push it.
I think he did.
Yes, very good. Well done. So on AI, I've been reading a lot from what's happening in the US, etc. I was looking at some data from layoffs.com. The whole of 2023, the tech companies laid off about 720 people per day last year.
Yep, double the prior year.
Currently, right now, in the first 2 months of 2024, they're laying off at the rate of 780 people per day.
That's right.
So that's roughly about a 10% increase.
Yes.
And the reason they are saying that they need to do that is to invest in new servers, invest in AI tools, etc., etc. I think this will have a cascading effect right through. We are already seeing it in most parts of the world.
Yes.
I think AI will take out repetitive tasks. Like, mobile phones took out the telephone operator, right? Because earlier we called a building to talk to Johnny. Now I call Johnny to talk to Johnny. Okay. So the telephone operator is gone. Okay. So repetitive tasks will go away. I think all employees will go up the value chain. And I think finally, while the last word has not been written, will only get better. There will always be challenges of every new technology. We've seen this consistently. The stock market seems to love AI. Okay, the regulators are in mixed mode. The politicians certainly are worried. Okay,
yes.
That's what
Bingo. And that's the
Yeah, well,
state.
the stock market loves NVIDIA, that's for sure. Go ahead, Johnny. I'm sorry.
No, and Microsoft and anybody else who, all you have to do these days is sort of mention AI. It's so funny to see companies now. If AI is not in your public material, then your comms people are failing you, because you get a premium just for somehow mentioning AI,
Yes.
right, Shiv? I mean, it's really
Absolutely.
fascinating.
So Shiv, let's kind of put a big bow on this. We've talked about a lot of things. We have talked about the enduring qualities of leadership. We've talked about, the trust that needs to be built. We've talked about accountability. We've talked about technology. How would you put a bow on this whole conversation so that a listener walks away with kind of maybe 1, 2, 3 main takeaways you'd like for them to have?
Yeah. Great question to put a bow on this. The first thing is, I did a very simple exercise, as I was thinking about this session, Johnny and Bob. And I think Johnny alluded to this at the start. I typed leadership into the search engine, and I got, believe it or not, 6.2 billion items in 0.39 seconds. 6.2 billion. There are 6.2 billion items on the topic of leadership. I cleared it and I typed followership. I had 3 million. Now here's the problem. The whole world is fascinated with leadership. Yep. The whole world does not want to practice followership. I submit to you, you cannot be a great leader if you're not a great follower.
Yep.
A great follower means doing things in the interest of the company and the boss, and to say, I will get this done, but speaking up whenever you believe that something is wrong. Finally, all of us must recognize that leadership is the ultimate responsibility.
That's right.
Okay. It is a responsibility all of us must carry. It's the burden we carry on our shoulders. Okay. And in leadership is the journey, which is the reward. It is not the title. We keep learning because the context keeps changing all the time. Tomorrow we hope to be a better leader. Day after tomorrow we can hope to be a better leader. There is nothing called you've got 100 on 100 leadership. It's a journey, and all of us need to go through that journey.
Love that.
Johnny, anything to add?
Drop the mic on that. Fabulous wrap up, Shiv. That is, I mean, what do you say? If I were to add anything, it's actually repeating something that something as I've reflected on the last 40 minutes or so of this conversation, the way that you have now reframed the conversation about horizontal versus vertical, that will stick with me. I was just actually, if you saw me looking down, I'm writing notes, because that really does stick with me, that the nature of leadership is very much about, it's a horizontal approach versus what historically was vertical. That's well done.
Shiv, thank you so much. It has been a true privilege and educational. I've learned a ton of stuff. Yes. Johnny's making notes, so I can't wait to see all of his notes. But thank you so much for investing a few minutes of your time with us today here on The Work Wire. It's been great.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Bob. I learned a lot. I enjoyed the session, and I hope that I get to see you soon, Johnny, yes. And then I hope to interact with you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So to our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us here on The Work Wire. We hope you enjoyed today's session with Shiv Shivakumar, and we will look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Work Wire. Johnny, here we go. Come on. Thank you so much.
Check out career.club for personalized help with your job search. Visit shrm.org to become part of the largest human resources organization worldwide.